Assalamualaikum everyone, and welcome back to MehdinaTV.
We gotta eat Pizza Hut.
So in this video, I'll be talking about the reactions I got after wearing the face veil, how my life was in university, sort of a little bit of how I met my husband with the veil, and a little bit about my medical lab technician course and how I worked at the hospital with my veil on. And if you haven't seen the part 1 of my niqab story already, please go watch that, and then you can watch this for it to make more sense. So without further ado, let's get into the video. But before I do, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The link is right down there. And please turn your bell notifications on so you can get our notifications for the videos we post every week. I was 15 when I started the face veil. The first day I started the veil, I go into my school bus. I sit in my school bus and I go in there, I step there and I sit down. The only girl that was in the school bus was sleeping at the time. I went inside. So basically my first interaction was with my bus driver, who saw me, didn't really give a reaction, so I was like, whatever. I go in the bus, I sit down, and I wait for that girl to wake up to see what it would be like. Kind of like a gist of how it would be if I started the face veil for real, because at this time I was still doing like a trial basis to see if I really wanted to do the face veil or not. She wakes up and then she looks at me and she's just like, ah! And I was like, what? She's like, what are you wearing on your head? And I was like, a face veil, a niqab. And she's like, but why? And I'm like, because I wanted to do it. And that's literally all I could say in that time. And she's just like, okay, this girl's gone crazy. So she stopped talking to me. Then I go into my school and my friends see me. And they're all shocked because my friend, if you remember from my part 1, my friend actually challenged me. And she said, you never will do this. Not in a million years. So the next day I come with the face veil. So she looks at me. She's my best friend now. But she looks at me and she's like, you actually did it? And I was like, yep, I did it. So then I was awaiting more reactions. More people came and reacted to my face veil. And it was just very supportive overall. And then, when I started the face veil, I knew in my mind that I was not going to cover my face in front of my male teachers. Because it was my first day. So I didn't want to go too deep into it. So my male teacher came, but my veil was still on, so I couldn't take it off. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So I ended up just keeping it on for my male teacher. He comes in, he goes to his desk, and then he calls me to his desk. And I was like, oh my God, what's gonna happen now? But I go and I went to his desk, and he basically looks at me and he's like, are you doing this for real, or are you just playing with it? And I'm like, I think I'm doing this for real. And he literally looked at me and he said, this is a beautiful thing you're doing, and remember, this is a commitment. And this was the second person who told me it was a commitment after my mom. So I was getting like a reaffirmation through him. So that actually motivated me a little bit more to do the whole commitment thing. And it was just getting a little bit stronger. The whole feeling of wearing a face veil was just getting stronger that day. And it was just that one day that I decided to wear the face veil. So I continued, and I kind of remembered my past where I was in that time in grade 6 when I started the headscarf. And then I took it off, and I did not want a repeat of that day. So I decided that, Mubina, if you're going to do this, you're going to do it as a commitment and you're not going to take it off. And I think that's what really helped me get through that day. It was the support of my friends. It was the support of my teacher. It was the backhand of my mom telling me, inspiring me, telling me that this is a commitment. And it was all the support I was getting from like my classmates who actually did the face veil. That this is a commitment and I will continue doing it. And after that day, I just knew that, I think this is a part of me now. I'm not taking it off. And it's funny because I started the face veil and the scarf at the same time. I think my main reaction to it was when I actually stepped out of the school, because I already wore a headscarf at school because of my uniform. But when I went outside wearing the face veil for the first time, that's when I felt like, what it would be like if I actually did this. So the reactions that I got was very respectful. I always, like, even when we went out for any kind of family gathering, like we went out for pizza, we went out for ice cream, it was literally like moments like that that made me really like the face veil a lot more, because I thought I was getting a lot more respect from people around me. I don't know if it was just me thinking that, but I literally felt like people were being more respectful. People were taking me more seriously. I don't know, I suddenly felt kind of grown up. But yeah, wearing the face veil did come with like awkward moments. So speaking of reactions, there was a time I went for pizza and I forgot I was a niqabi now, like that I wore a face veil. So I tried eating the pizza over my face veil, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't taste the pizza until I realized, like, oh yeah, I have a cloth on my face. But anyway, we're not going to get too much into the awkward moment, but if you guys want to see a video on the awkward moments that I faced as a niqabi, please comment down below and I will make a video on it. But moving on to more reactions. So my dad actually did not know I started the face veil the day I did. He found out 2 weeks after because he worked in a different province. So he had no idea I started the face veil. The only person that knew was my mom, and I wanted to keep it on the down low in case I wanted to take it off. Because like that first day was a trial basis, and you know, you never know. I did the same thing in grade 6, so who knows, like, you know, I wanted to only do it for a day. But I did end up like telling my dad, and it wasn't me telling my dad, I kind of just wore the face veil as we were going out as a family, and he saw me wearing the face veil and he's like, what? And I was like, yep, Dad, I started the face veil. And he actually had no reaction to it, which was interesting to me, but I was like, okay. I mean, my dad is supportive, my mom is supportive, so it doesn't really matter. And then came my relatives. My relatives were supportive for the most part, but they didn't understand it at the time, and I can't really blame them. I mean, like, I was in the same boat. It's not a very easy thing to understand. One thing I really found interesting though, the year I started the face veil, my cousin started the face veil too. I hope that it was because I was the inspiring one that she started, and I like to believe that, but she started it and it just gave me more of an affirmation that I'm doing something right. And then that same year, my best friend in my class, she started the face veil too. In fact, it was 2 months after me that she started, and another person in my class, who was also my really good friend, started that same day. So 2 people started the niqab on the same day in the year that I wore the niqab. And then there was a little bit of a chain reaction, and I think 5 girls in my class, including me, started the face veil that year. And it just felt so cool because I was one of the first that did it in that year, and I'd like to believe that it was because of me that the chain started, but I'm sure it wasn't. Let's just pretend it was because of me. Moving on to a little bit of a fast forward life. I actually went for Hajj with my face veil, and a lot of people think that, you know, women can't perform pilgrimage with a face veil on, but I did. I used to wear a hat, and then I used to have a cloth draped down on my front so that, you know, my face would be covered. So I just want to put it out there that I actually performed pilgrimage the same year I started the niqab, and I performed it in a niqab, and it was very interesting actually. But like, you know, it's just to show people that you can actually perform the pilgrimage in a niqab, so don't feel like, you know, you can't. And this is coming from me as a first-hand experience. A lot of people started telling me that, you know, you might not get into a university because of your face veil, or you might not get a job because of your face veil. Now, if you remember from my first part of the niqab story, I didn't take into account how I would have limited career options if I started the face veil. I was always a little bit too confident in myself. I believed in myself a little too much, so I never really took that into consideration until, like, you know, grade 12, when I was actually applying for universities. And that's when I started to wonder, like, oh man, how am I gonna do like what I wanted to do my whole life as a career? Because my whole life I wanted to be a dentist, and in a face veil that would have been a little bit too difficult. So I did have to change my career path, but not by too much, because I still really like the medical field. So I decided to take biological sciences in university. So I go to university with my face veil, and that was one of the first times I experienced a little bit of a culture shock, because I was used to the whole environment of all girls, because my school was all girls, and I was just used to being amongst girls because of my face veil. So going into a university with men and women in the same class was a very awkward time for me, especially in the first 2 years. I was literally trying to like discover myself. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't even talk to guys. I couldn't even say hi to them sometimes. They would say hi to me and I would just be like, yeah, okay, bye. That's how I would interact with them for the most part. I remember I would search up girls to buy books from because I didn't want to interact with men. And that was so odd because I was in an environment where I'd have to potentially work with men eventually because of group projects and stuff, and this was not helping. So I had to kind of reevaluate the way I was doing things, and I had to have a lot of conversations with my mother, and I had to discover that, like for work settings and for professional settings, we are actually allowed to talk to men. It's just that I had no confidence until my husband came into the picture. That was the first time I experienced talking to a guy, and it wasn't face to face, it was online. So he texted me and he wanted me to edit his essay, and that is when I realized that, okay, wow, the world didn't shatter, nothing exploded. Oh my god, I can talk to a guy without running away. And then I remember I bought a book from him. It was very awkward because I never bought books from any guys before him. I remember I went and I saw him, and that was actually our first interaction in person. So I bought the book, I kind of threw the money at him and ran away. And that's kind of how our interaction was at the beginning because of my face veil. But I started getting a little bit more open to the idea because he would ask me a lot of questions about my religion, and I would talk about my religion with him, and it was kind of like very work related, and it kind of made me more comfortable that maybe a man and a woman can talk with just a work related thing. Because I always thought that it would lead to something else, but for us it was very, very work related. So Alhamdulillah, I continued talking to him in terms of work. We actually had group projects coincidentally, and then we actually ended up working in the lab together too, which is funny because my husband actually was the one that challenged me in university, and I don't know why. I think I'm just prone to challenges, but every time a person has challenged me in my life, I've always been very competitive to completing those challenges. So my husband, and this was when he didn't convert to Islam, he thought that niqab was a very odd thing and that women shouldn't be wearing it. So he's like, how the heck are you going to get a job? How are you going to work as a research assistant with your veil on? And I was like, being the optimistic me, I was like, I'll get it, don't worry, I'll figure out a way. So I actually remember after we had that conversation, I was feeling a little bit skeptical, but I don't ever say that to him, but I was feeling a little bit skeptical. Then I went and I started searching up different research assistant positions. And Alhamdulillah, after that, I actually ended up working in 4 different research positions. And one of them was with my husband. So it was funny because now I can actually say to him, see, a face veil does not hinder you from getting a research assistant position. And he was like, yeah, no, I get it now. But yeah, it was very interesting. And the way our work relationship progressed in that sort of way was very, it was almost miraculous how we even got married. But that's a different story. Getting into the last years of my university, I was starting to have a little bit more of a panic on careers because I didn't know what I was doing, and I still wanted to have that medical field in my career. So I decided to go into a course for medical lab technicians. And that was very interesting because I had hematophobia, which is fear of blood. I was extremely fearful of blood. I was extremely fearful of needles. So I have no idea what caused me to choose a career in a medical lab technician, realm. So I decided to do that because my love for medical field was way more than my fear for needles and blood. So I decided to do that course. And it's hilarious because the professors weren't expecting a niqabi girl, and I think I was the first one in my college to be a niqabi girl and to do a medical lab technician course. But it was a really nice experience for me to show the world, or to show my college actually that, a person with a face veil can do stuff like this. And I made it so, like, you know, I used to wear scrubs if I had to, and they were very accommodating to me wearing a face veil too. They were very, very accommodating, and they made me feel very comfortable working with everyone. And I know that we had labs. We actually had to do blood work on men and women, and they used to accommodate that a lot. And although I would be doing blood work on men and women, it was a really cool experience, because I think people should know that Islam has exceptions for a lot of things, and when there's a medical need, you can help both genders. It's not very exclusive to just females. So if you have to save a life, you'd have to save a life for a man and woman. And that's what I kind of showed them in that course, and that actually broke some stereotypes in their heads too. Because I remember my friends would come to me and they'd be like, oh, I didn't know you could do this. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. And I'd be like, yeah, I can do all of this. And there's actually one very interesting thing that I learned in that course that I didn't know I would do, and that's ECGs. And ECGs are basically electrocardiographs. They are done on your chest. So I had to like expose my chest. Obviously my face was still covered, but I had to expose my chest behind curtains, and they had to take my ECG to like do the testing. And this is how we practiced. And by showing that, it also helped them understand, you know, like to what extent we can actually learn the medical field. And it was good because I was getting a lot of exposure to what medical fields entail. And I just became so passionate with that because I really, really wanted to help people. I didn't want people to fear needles the way I did. So I had to conquer my fear with blood work, and I had to conquer my fear with needles so that I could help others. And then after that course, I got a placement at the hospital. And I think that's where my real test began, because this is where I was actually made to take blood specimens from real people and not just my classmates. And when they saw me coming to the hospital doing their blood work, I think they also had a change of perception to at least one person who was very discriminating towards me at the beginning. But because she was a regular patient, she actually eased up with me over time. And I still remember the day she actually gave me a chance, because as a student, I was always told to ask whether a person wants to get their blood work done from me at the hospital. At least when I was doing my placement, I had to ask, can I do your blood work? And if they agreed, then I would be able to do it. But this one lady, she wouldn't let me do it for at least like 3 or 4 times. She wouldn't let me do it. But then this 5th time, I don't know what occurred in her mind, but she actually asked me to do her blood work. And when I did, she was surprised at how painless it was, and she praised me for the way I handled it. She's like, I misunderstood you. I didn't know like how you'd be, and I'm sorry about that. And it just made me feel so happy, because I felt like I was doing something right. With my character, I was showing that, you know, I'm just like everyone else. I'm not like some extraterrestrial thing, even though I look like one sometimes. But yeah, that was my experience in the medical lab technician course. And that kind of brings me to the end of my story with the reaction and my placement and my job. What I can take away from my journey from like the age of 15 wearing a face veil is that there's going to be skepticism. It's going to be scary. There's going to be times where you're going to feel like you're not being the perfect, you know, niqabi. You're not being the perfect person that you're supposed to be. But that's fine, because those are things that teach you a lesson along the way. When I thought that my career would be hindered in university, that was kind of, you know, taken out of the picture when I got my research assistant position. When I thought it would be a hindrance towards my marriage, that was taken out of the way when I got my husband to marry me. Well, I didn't do anything. I mean, he married me on his own. But yeah, that's besides the point. So at the end of the day, I just want to say that, you know, you'll feel like wearing the face veil or wearing the hijab in general is a very hard thing, but it does take time for you to understand what you're doing. And that's what I had to do. I really, really had to understand why I'm doing it in order to be as strong as I am now, alhamdulillah. And I hope that I get to keep wearing this for the rest of my life. And that's something that I really aim for. And that brings me to the end of my part 2 of the story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys loved it. And if you did, please don't forget to like this video. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The button is right down there. And please turn on your bell notifications so that you'll get notified for next week's video. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.